Friends and lovers and all of the others, welcome to another episode of Pod from the Bunker. My name is Kevin Foster. Kev from the Bunker here on Twitch. It's Kevin D. Foster on YouTube. If you're watching this on YouTube, we do this live on Twitch on Mondays generally. Today we are doing it on a Wednesday afternoon, but that means nothing to you on YouTube. Hit that like and subscribe if you're on YouTube. I think I'm at like 950 subscribers. If I get 50 more, then YouTube goes, wow, you did really well, and you got to 1,000. And they start to help me out a little bit with that algorithm. So be super helpful if you subscribe over there. Below, we will have links for our guests today. All of my links will be below. There's links to merch. There's links to all my socials. There's links to affiliates, lessons, for guitars, drums, vocals, etc. And if you want to support further, you can subscribe on Twitch or you can subscribe on Patreon. There's a $3 tier on Patreon where you're just like, hey, Kev, you work really hard at making all this content and supporting other artists, so I'm going to give you $3 a month. And if you do that, that would be just unbelievably helpful to keep the lights on here. There's a lot of lights in this room. Today we have Ontario born and raised producer. I believe he was born and raised here, but he lived here for many, many years at least. And he has just made the big move and uprooted his life at the end of this pandemic after 2 years of chaos to move to Nashville and chase the dream of being a producer in Nashville. You know what? Regardless of what city is behind the name, he is the same level of awesome producer to me, whether it's from Burlington, Ontario or Nashville, Tennessee. Doesn't make any difference to me, and I hope it doesn't to you, because we're going to show you how the hot dog is made today. He's going to take you from an iPhone demo all the way to a fully radio-ready produced song. Mostly country music based, some pop, but he likes to work on everything, and we're going to learn a lot about him right now. His name is Jordan Honsinger, and I'm really excited about this one, guys, so get ready, and we're going to bring him in right now. Jordan, welcome.
Hey.
How are you?
Thanks for having me.
Thank you for doing this. Can I ask you one quick favor and just tip your camera down just a hair?
I can do that, yeah.
There's just cropping going on my page. Perfect. That's money.
Yeah. No
How are you today, dude?
I'm doing good. I'm excited to be here and do this. I've, heard a lot about Twitch, but kind of, a noob as it were
Right.
to Twitch. So.
We gave you the Coles notes quickly before here, but I see you are sort of moving into a new space behind you. You've got some bed sheets hanging up and some different sort of makeshift vocal booths going on. I love it. How's the move been for you?
It's been really good. It's been there's been so many stages because it wasn't just coming down here like I had in the past to do a 1 week writing trip or whatever. Like this is moving your entire life. And my wife is here with me and incredibly supportive. We brought our dog. We ended up buying a house. So we've been here for a little bit now, and all those little all those things happened. We were kind of road mapping the first 6 months of being here and having to plan it all out. So it's good, but as you can see, bed sheets, makeshift, not completely settled, but there's a bigger plan for a detached garage kind of studio setup. So
amazing, yeah. Man. What is music to you, Jordan?
What is music? That's a big question. I feel like it's kind of a cop-out to just say music is everything, but it is everything. I've been doing it since I was basically 11. My mom was a music teacher in public school in Mississauga, Ontario, for pretty much my whole life. She was also a piano teacher privately at home. She had students that would come to the house, and I was, when I was like 4 and 5, I just remember hearing the piano going all the time in the evenings during the week. And my sisters, she took through to grade 10 and all that stuff. So, I grew up surrounded by it, started to play guitar when I was 11 and truly never stopped. And it's kind of weird because I can be very distractible and a lot of things can take me away from music. But for some reason, when I was a kid, I just kept hammering away at the guitar every single day for literally my entire life. Like it hasn't stopped.
Mm-hmm. Do you find that you have trouble paying attention to everyday other things and keeping focus, or because I find that music for me is one thing that it consumes enough of my brain that I can just stay in it for a certain period of time. Might that be the case for you?
Yeah, I'm not, yeah, I can, I stay focused on it and it holds my attention big time. I'm not like highly distractible per se. Like I don't, have ADD, I don't think, although, some teachers growing up questioned whether I did or not in high school and stuff.
Yeah.
But yeah, like I just know when you're young and you're coming up, there's, whether it's girls or your friends hanging out or even video games, there's a lot of things that can pull you away from sitting in a room playing an instrument and hating how awful it sounds. And I remember going through those growing pains of just
Yeah.
like, this sucks. I suck.
Yeah.
This is garbage, until eventually you stick with it. And all of a sudden it's like, it's less garbage.
Yeah.
It doesn't sucks a lot less. And that's the goal, is to just suck less over time.
Mm-hmm.
You can make that my
Bumper
motto
sticker,
for the
yeah.
whole our whole interview. Suck less over time.
You'll never be well, you'll never, there's no like top of the mountain for music, right? You can just always keep climbing. It's an infinite mountain to climb. And so do you think that's also something that keeps you interested, is the fact that there's no final, if you beat Bowser in Nintendo, the game's over, you won. Now in music that doesn't exist.
Yeah, that's actually hilarious. That's a great example. There is no completion date, even when it comes to producing. A song is, as they say, a song is never finished until you hand it in.
Right.
That's the only thing that determines that it's finished. You can change it, morph it, rework it, build it up, strip it back down, build it up again. There's no limit. And that is one of the most inspiring and fascinating aspects of it, and also the most terrifying, because when do you hand something in? When do you call something finished? When do you walk away?
Mm-hmm.
And as a musician or as a producer, walking away from something, I'm sure lots can relate out there. It's really hard to do if you aren't satisfied. Like
Mm-hmm.
if you don't have that sense of completion.
Mm-hmm. Do you think that the sense of completion can attributes to success ultimately? What do you consider success?
I do think success is subjective, and it should be, because if you hold yourself to other people's standards, especially in this industry, you will find yourself massively disappointed. But if you have your own personal goals, by which you measure success, I think that's the best way to go. So I can only speak to success as it is for me.
Mm-hmm.
And it does include some of those like things you see on paper or on TV, like I would love to have something I've worked on be eligible for some awards, whether it's a Grammy or, a CMA award, Country Music Association award, or CCMA, which is the Canadian Country Music Association. That would be massive. I wouldn't consider myself done. I would keep pushing beyond that. But at the same time, if that never happens, I really think waking up every day, doing something I love and doing the best I can, and really creating a business that is vibrant, that artists are excited about, they're excited to pass my name along to the next artist. That to me is success right there. It's just waking up every day, being truly proud of something I'm doing, and working with artists who are equally proud and equally driven. That really and truly is what matters most. So yeah, that's how I define it.
Do you think the piano lessons in the house and the theory going on there, do you have theory background, and does that help you with pop music?
I'll say I had theory. I think I've lost a lot of it. And most of I did take lessons in guitar. Well, to backtrack for a second. So the piano, my mom being a piano teacher, she tried to get me to sit down with it. I lasted maybe 3 months, and I used to play on the piano at the house before she ever tried lessons. So I had exposure to it, and I knew when I was starting to put actual music together on it, like I knew what was right and what was wrong in terms of the sound of it.
Mm-hmm.
But I didn't stick with it. I was bored. I hated it. My friends were all picking up guitar, so I got into guitar. I took lessons with guitar for about 4 years,
Right.
right from day one, like 4 years in. So that was a pretty big, what do you call it? Consistent thing that I stuck with, and I got some theory through that. But today, I don't. I use my ears more than anything, and
Okay.
for years after my lessons, so much of guitar is like you hear a riff and you start like riffing yourself
Right.
until you've got that riff.
Right.
So it's very I feel anyways, very
Yeah.
ear driven. Obviously, if you go to school for it or Juilliard or
Mm-hmm.
Berkeley or Honsinger or any of these famous schools, then it gets more theory intense, but not me.
I listened to an interview just the other day. Rick Beato had Derek Trucks on. And all the questions are, how is your intonation? How do you know where to go? And he's like, well, I just hear it. He's like, you just hear where the note is. He's like, some people have. And I was speaking with another compadre of ours. I'll mention her name, Danny Strong. It wasn't Danny. It was Bernadette Connors, which you might know as well. But she's a vocal teacher, and she says that the number of cents, like cents on each side of a tuned note varies for each people, just like our eye vision does. So I can't see as well as you. I have glasses on, but some people can't hear as well as me. My intonation, my variability of sense, is tighter than others. Does that make sense?
Yeah. Dude, they picked the worst word. Yeah. So for viewers who don't know, when you have pitch and your pitch is moving sharp or flat,
right.
You'll see it on like a chromatic tuner in a guitar. If you go just off of that perfect centered pitch, they measure it in cents, CENTS.
Thank you.
Yeah. So it's, I agree with that. I mean, I think on one hand, it's developed. You can get better at listening and tuning your ear to pitch and hear all those little. How many cents is it between a certain note and a semitone up? Do you know?
Well, I know it's going to be like 20, because I think like when I'm seeing, it's usually bouncing around 10 on each side when I'm tuning a note. So I think like 20 or 40 is like down a semitone, possibly.
Yeah, it's like a millimeter is inside of an centimeter or an inch, right? It's this micro measurement of pitch, and then of course a semitone or a whole tone is your big kind of like hard defined notes, right? Yeah. Derek Trucks has an incredible ability, and I imagine he is micro correcting on the fly. If he just overslides just a hair,
he brings it back. His body
he's already moving it into a vibrato to sort of smooth that out. And I know for production, like tuning guitars and having everything that you record in tune, if I played you my earliest stuff that I produced, which I don't think I'll be doing today, I'd have to dig that up. But you would hear like a lot of out-of-tune guitars, a lot of things that I at that time wasn't hearing accurately compared to where I am today. I've spent a lot of time just ripping it apart and redoing it or moving on from it, which you and I chatted about not that long ago, about the importance of completing projects and really just moving on from them. So that, all that stuff has helped sense of pitch and all that. So pitch is, even though it's not really part of theory, it's super important to being a developed, mature musician.
Yeah, that's what I was trying to get back and bring it all back to the fact that like you can hear things better, and you're listening to a piano and your mom is teaching, and whether you're not, you like it, you're 10 years old, you're absorbing some of that information and your ears are hearing it. I know that, again, I'm going to bring him up again, but Rick Beato, when his wife was pregnant, he would put on Bach and classical music on headphones and lay it on her stomach, and that kid is born with perfect pitch.
Really?
Yeah, his kid has perfect.
Crazy.
His kid has perfect pitch, and he attributes that to playing classical music to the womb.
That's pretty wild.
Yeah, absolutely. So
I don't think like I can see that being possible. Some people might criticize or question that. I don't know. Like those first
fetal development,
that cellular level is so. The first 5 years of our life is where I think the majority of everything we are going to carry with us for the rest of our life
100%
is formed and developed. So.
And I started playing stringed instruments at 18, bro. I'm 12 years behind. I can't do the same amount of imprinting on myself. Like I've
Mm.
tried to learn scales and stuff and I've tried to play, but I just don't have that ability to absorb that anymore. If I was 14
Right.
or 8, you better believe I'd be ripping it, right? It's
I
weird.
I think I think that there's a huge thing. I've witnessed that or experienced that myself. I feel like my ability to just dig into the nuances of a guitar solo and learn it note for note I was far more capable when I was in my teenage years compared to when I was in my 20s and stuff. Um, yeah, I think there's something to do with how much our brain is growing in those years compared to when we're a bit older. Maybe alcohol is a factor too. I
Yeah.
don't know. There's probably a few things
It's
that
cannabis for me, but
influence
yeah, and all of the above, right? Um,
that. Yeah.
so let's talk a little bit about production now and talk about how we take a song, because you're going to take us from a song that was a demo on a phone that you co-wrote with an artist to a session that kind of, how does that start, and what are the, let's say there's 5 steps to get from what you're going to show us. What are those 5 steps you think? Write in, demo
Yeah.
the song, bed tracks, pre-production, whatever those steps you think. If you had to nail it to
Yeah.
5, excuse me.
Yeah, well, one thing I'll say, I think it's a good point to bring up. Maybe I'm getting a little too far down before I start just talking about the songwriting. But one thing I want to say is that when you are building a song, when you're producing music, a lot of times, even right down to the technical aspects of how good a mix sounds, like just how polished and perfect everything sounds, a lot of that stuff is also helped by this how the song is written and the arrangement in the song, meaning the instruments that are there or not there, right? And all those choices as, do I put a guitar here, do I leave it empty, do I put a piano, whatever, all that stuff, which in a lot of ways, it is part of writing the song in a way. But really, when I sit down with artists and friends and colleagues in the industry, it's just acoustic guitars and it's just us in a room, usually anywhere from 2 to 4 people. I also write some stuff by myself too, and then take it into a room with more people later. But anyways, yeah, it just starts with um, kind of putting down lyrics and not really getting too lost in those later stage things like the drum beat and all that stuff that comes later. But we get just basic chords, basic structure, right? Verse, chorus, verse 2, chorus, bridge, and then the final chorus, and
So
then whatever.
I know, like I always say that, like if you can't play the song with just an acoustic guitar and a piano, then and there's no song there or whatever. Is that what you guys go for? Is like, let's just find the core of this. And also, you said no drum beat, but how about feel? Do you have to? Yeah,
Yeah, feel. I mean, and that's what's so cool about an acoustic and writing with an acoustic guitar is it is quite
yeah,
percussive. So you are setting the tempo, you're kind of setting the groove, the pocket with whatever your riff is.
yeah,
You don't really need a drum kit at that stage to get that feel and get
right.
that timing.
I'm
Yeah.
just thinking
Uh,
things like the song "Tequila" by Dan and Shay. It's boom, chuck, boom, chuck, boom, chuck, boom. So that is a certain
mhm.
feel on the drums that's already derived. We don't need, like, that's happening now. Those are the pushes and the pulls. The
Yes.
accents are already there, right?
Yeah, and you can accomplish that without a drum kit, right? Like
Oh
just
yeah.
with where you pluck the note and
Yep.
sustain it, and then where you kind of mute it,
Yep.
right? That creates that little gap, that little pocket,
hmm
and that absolutely can be done that way.
The feel, right? Like I'm always very hard on myself because oftentimes I get into writing maybe a couple songs in a few months and they all start to have the same feel because I'm locked on that feel from listening to a certain song or something like that. And I'm like, oh, this
Yeah,
is the same as the tequila feel. I don't want that anymore. I gotta do a shuffle. Let's get a shuffle going here.
yeah. I notice that sometimes with myself. I notice it in. It's easier, obviously, I think, to notice in other artists. But just what I mean is people I've written with lots of times. Sometimes they return to like the same kind of zone that
Resolve.
they're more
Yeah.
comfortable in, and it's their familiar territory.
Right.
And that's what's great about writing with other people is
Right.
I've brought stuff in, and somewhere in the middle of the write, somebody's like, well, what if the riff did this? And it's like, I never would have thought of that. And I'm so glad that they brought it up, because the song is better off for it, right? And people sort of taking other people's ideas and pulling them apart and putting them back together, to me, is what elevates songwriting and elevates us as musicians and individuals, you know. So I'm a fan of that.
Big prime example for me was Elise Saunders was here doing a session the other day, and I know you co-wrote on Jeans with her. Is that right?
Yeah.
So at the end of the chorus, when it comes to the resolve line, there's a rest. Something on my G, and then there's a rest there. Well, I would always want to say the word right away. I would always want to just go G, and so that little pause there, I was like, oh, my ears perked up a little. I was like, oh, I got to do that. You know, those little things where I don't ever have a co-writer to help me with that one pause, just a half beat bar here.
Yeah.
Don't and sing it. Let them wait. We're building tension and release every time, and I'm starting to learn this as a writer. And so, tremendous. That song is great, by the way.
Oh, thank you. Yeah, it was so much fun, and like it was just fun to sit down with the idea. Elise brought that in, and Dan Swinimer was a writer on that as well, who ended up producing it, and he did a phenomenal job. I think Dan is just a killer producer, and he's kind of quiet, but I feel like more and more people across Canada are and beyond are learning, you know, who Dan is and what he's doing, because he does amazing work. But yeah, that. You know, I was thinking about that as you're bringing that up. I'm like, I wonder if that's actually functional, like for Elise, right? Because she has so much ability with her voice, and then she goes and does that whole run with the word Gene. So I'm thinking like maybe she's just like designed it that way
to take a breath
for a big breath.
Yeah, no, but it's great. But
at the same time, whoops, sorry, I hit my mic.
Yeah.
At the same time, you're right. It's tension and release, and so much of music is that, even in pop. You know, and I think that kind of stuff really makes songs really, that's what makes a hook like land, is when you create some kind of release that follows some kind of tension. It's just more exciting. It's
or reverse, you know, F-150 by Robin Ottolini.
Even in EDM, I was going to say they do it too, right? Like in EDM, you have that massive build, and it creates this like awkward, like when's this thing going to land? And sometimes now they even like will arc it back down and not resolve it, and then build up the tension again for a second time, even bigger, and then boom, it's like they just like, you know, drop an 808 and then
well, my example is the F-150 song by Robin Ottolini does it opposite though, right? Like it's kind of louder, and then I see it goes so quiet for the actual hook, but the tension is still there. Like there's still this buildup, and then it just resolves in a place where you land softly on a cloud instead of landing hard, right? So just the opposite of that. Yeah.
That's true. Yeah. And there's a song, I can play it too in a little bit here, but there's a song I did with a guy from Ontario, an artist, a country artist. And we kind of did something in the first chorus of the song that creates sort of its own kind of tension, I would say, where the verse builds, and rather than coming, like there's no drums yet in the song, and rather than like you think on the first chorus it's just gonna go boom, full on drum kit, and we left the drums out and actually went into this really sort of staccato dancing strings kind of pulsing arpeggiated rhythm for the first chorus. And it's so I like this move, because if the song's a little bit longer, if the choruses are a bit longer, it kind of it gives the song more places to go. And in the second chorus, what we did is, after that first chorus where there's no drums, but there's sort of there is still a lot of rhythm, the drums kind of come crashing in the second verse. And so the groove sort of finally picks up in the second verse, but it's light. It's not like balls to the wall. And then when you get to the second chorus, that's when
another lift. Yeah.
And it feels twice as big as the first chorus. And it just creates this cool effect. So,
well, let's not specifically maybe this song, but why don't you show us how it goes from sitting in a room with 2 to 4 people and acoustic guitar to a giant session of, I don't know, 45, 105 tracks. How many do you usually have? Can I ask you this? What is the average track number on a session you do?
The one I'm going to play you, that went from like an iPhone recording in the writing room to finish, I think it's upwards of 160 tracks.
Oh,
Yeah.
my brain.
And that's there's a couple I've done that are more up in like the 240 range. Now,
Oh my.
one thing that's I'd say
Who's
average is
mixing that?
probably around 150.
Who is mixing that?
I am.
Oh my goodness,
I do it to
dude.
myself, man. It's brutal. And the other thing to acknowledge right off the bat is that doesn't mean that there's audio on all of those tracks playing back at all times,
Yeah,
right?
you have loop
Partly, and I'll, sorry, go ahead.
side chains and effects and stuff are on other tracks and different mics that are on the same instrument, etc., etc.
Yeah, there's a bit of that. Like if I exclude all that, like yeah, some of those track numbers are account for track folders where there's a bunch of sub tracks within one. So, but still, if you were to remove all the effects tracks and all the duplicate stuff that doesn't really count towards a track count, like it's still 150.
Yeah,
On some
it's
songs, it's
wild, dude. That makes my
up to
brain hurt.
100.
I'm trying to do a 4-track demo, and I'm like, fuck this. It's
Yeah.
just absurd.
It's grown to this over time. When I first started out, like it was just like one instrument kind of on one track, and that's the only place that an instrument of that type occurs. Whereas now, in some songs, depending on the song, I'll have bass guitar, I'll have like a bass synth line come in and match the bass guitar in maybe the last chorus, and then I'll have a different sub synth kind of thing going on in the bridge, whatever. So there's like 3 or 4
Bass
sort of quote unquote
guitars. Yeah.
instrument tracks. Yeah. And that's just bass. And bass is usually the one that you don't,
Yeah. No.
you have one and that's it, even on the biggest productions. But when you get into the amount of layers of keyboards and synths and guitars, that's where and vocals, especially.
Oh yeah, I
a
did
lot
that.
of pop productions are so vocal heavy.
Yeah. All right. Well, why don't I just hit this button here that's going to play my fancy little jingle, and then you're going to have full screen with your session open, and I'm going to mute myself and just let you sort of show us how it went from phone to session. And if anybody here is in the Twitch chat live right now, we generally don't have live interaction, but if you have questions along the way, I am going to be reading the chat and I will relay them over to Jordan if you have questions about the session, about how he got it, pre-production, anything along this whole chain of events that he's about to show us. So I'm going to hit that button right now, Jordan. The screen is all yours. Cool. And everyone here who is in chat, you can please go ahead and ask us any questions along the way. Thank you so much.
Sure, yeah. Right on. Okay.
All right, Jordan, I'm just going to mute myself so that I don't interrupt your session here, and go ahead and do your thing, sir.
Sure, yeah. I'll keep an ear out too. If you are relaying any questions or questions of your own, I'll just just turn on your mic and I'll stop what I'm doing.
Yes, sir. Thank you.
Yeah, so the one song I was going to show is an artist that and friend of mine from Ontario, Patrick James Clark. We did a song called For the Record. And so this is a song that I, had the pleasure of kind of being involved in from the very beginning, because he and I and our friend Rich Cloak and some other friends of ours, we all kind of set up on the calendar different write dates and stuff. So Patrick and Rich and I sat down to come up with a song, and it was this one here. And so what I'm going to play you is the work tape to start. We call it a work tape for anybody who doesn't do this regularly. Work tape is really just an iPhone recording. There is no tape involved, first of all. I think that's a dated term, but either way, it's an iPhone recording of us sitting in the room. We had just finished the write, and we're sort of recording it to capture what we created that day. And then sort of it goes into a hard drive and maybe never sees the light of day, or if we're really proud of it, we start talking about turning it into a production. So this is the work tape, and I'll play that. So this is just Patrick with his guitar, and he's just singing the vocals there.
For the record, really wish you had stayed. Didn't want to go in this way. I'm not saying you're all to blame, but for the record, I'm the one getting no sleep, and you're the one bent on leaving. You made it look so damn easy.
And here's the chorus.
Could've been that classic throwback old school kind of style. Just a needle sliding through the groove like vinyl. Could have been that timeless love song people sing forever, but I was wrong. It's another sad song for the record.
So I'll stop it in a sec here.
For the record.
And then it's into verse 2 there. So that's just a sample, you know, first verse, first chorus, just so you can get an idea of this song. I'm going to play you, before I open up the session for it, I'm just going to play you where it went when we finish, like the finished production version.
For the record, I really wish you had stayed. Didn't want to go in this way. I'm not saying you're to blame, but for the record, I'm the one getting no sleeping. You were so bent on leaving. You made it look so damn easy. Could have been that classic throwback old school kind of style, like a needle sliding through the groove on vinyl. Could have been that timeless love song people sing forever, but I was wrong. We're another sad song for the record. For the record.
So that chorus is a bit stripped down, and that's not the example I was talking about earlier about the stripped down chorus, but consequently that one kind of is too. I'm going to play the second chorus into the solo where the song's a bit more energetic, and you can kind of hear that. So okay. So this is the end of verse 2.
There's no going back again. Could have been that classic throwback old school kind of style, like a needle sliding through the groove on vinyl. Could have been that timeless love song people sing forever, but I was wrong. We're another sad song for the record. For the record. I don't want to have to write this song, but it's what you do when heartbreak comes along. Could have been that classic.
And it kind of builds into the final chorus there. So this song is it's cool. It's actually a little more sparse in a way, which is kind of a pop thing to do these days, right? Is like kind of have sparse instruments and that. So it kind of has that treatment. But nevertheless, when I open the session, you'll see how much is actually going on in it. That sort of makes it sound the way it does. Kev, give me a thumbs up. Should I move to that? Should I open the session and I'll break it down a little bit? Okay. So I will pull that up. The reason why I wanted to play the audio file of the finished production first is because when I open this session, I'll get an error message on some of my UAD plugins because I just sort of downsized my UAD processing. So some of my old sessions I can't open right now. Eventually I will be able to again, but I'm changing some hardware out here at the studio. So it should still play back pretty close to the way
Can I ask you something,
it was.
Jordan? Yeah. Is there a particular reason you use Reaper?
Yeah. So, this is funny because I self-admittedly, unapologetically get on a soapbox and preach the Reaper gospel to all my friends, and they make fun of me for it. Not for using Reaper, but just for how passionate I am about it. I use Pro Tools a lot too, to be honest. But I have used Reaper since like 2008, and I've used Pro Tools since like 2004. But Reaper just allows me to move at basically light speed, whereas Pro Tools, I can't move as fast. And second of all, there's far more errors and there's a lot more software issues, and it's a little heavier on my system. Reaper is so light. So what I will do, if somebody's handing me a partially produced song or whatever, and it's in Pro Tools, I'll stay there. if I'm building something from the ground up, with my track templates and the things I have set up, I can get a production in Reaper going in probably a quarter of the time. So I just love it, and it's cheap, so that's fun too. It's $60 for a license that lasts you 2 full versions, and then you have to pay $60 again. But since owning it in 2008, I've paid $60 twice, and I should be good for another few years before I have to pay it again. So it's pretty inexpensive. So yeah, down here at the bottom, you can see kind of where I'm circling my mouse. That's 163. So that's 163 tracks. Now, granted, these dark tracks here are actually folders with a bunch of sub tracks in them. So it's still upwards around, I'd say, 150 tracks in the whole session. And so I will play from the beginning so you can kind of hear and see what's going on. And I apologize, I'll get these error windows, but so here's the acoustic by itself right off the opening. And then I had this kind of synth pulse thing going, this arpeggiated kind of.
For the record, I really wish.
And I color everything in my sessions to help keep it organized, to manage all these tracks. So drums are always red. All these yellow, these are all sends. Actually, I should probably unmute those. So those are all effects sends for reverb and delay and all that stuff. I've got some mandolin going here. So that's in the second chorus. So these are little things that are going on in the song. I'll unmute it. If I turn it up, you can kind of hear it better there. And then just some big acoustic chords, left and right.
So I just...
Guitar solo.
Jordan, I just want to give a disclaimer if you don't mind.
What's that, sorry?
I just want to give a disclaimer is due to the chat that we're having over a free video software, there's a little bit of weird warble that's going on. So this is what you're hearing directly here is not what you're going to hear. It's not what Jordan is hearing. So if you would like, Jordan has playlists made with all of his songs on Spotify and Apple Music. His link tree is currently right now in the chat, and I believe those lists are on that link tree or link bio. And so if you want to listen to this track to its fullest, to the cleanest way, please go listen there. This is the best we can do over a video chat, but I just want you to know, Jordan, that they're not hearing exactly what you would like them to hear. The subtleties and the beautifulness of all of this is kind of being lost a little bit in the video chat. So I just wanted to make that disclaimer for yourself when you listen back, not to be upset, and for everybody else out there, go listen to these songs on actual streaming platforms, especially if he's co-written.
Yeah. Yeah, no, that's totally understandable. I'll maybe I won't dive too deep into some of the nuanced stuff. I'll try and keep it a little more, I'll try and cater to the crappy quality of the, not crappy, but
it's okay though.
Awesome quality of the video. So I'll solo some electric guitars here. These should come through pretty good. And there's this weird little guitar thing in here. So I'll solo this up because this had a cool effect on it. So on that weird, I'm going to show you what effects I've got on there because I don't even remember how I did that. But yeah, so if I mute those two effects on that guitar, and I'll play it again. So even that, I'll turn that delay off. So this is all it was. So just two notes, but then you add a ping pong delay. So there's a little tiny bit of faint delay in the background ping pong. So that means it's ping ponging between left and right speakers. I have a little bit of extra delay here with Valhalla Supermassive. So now you can hear all those extra tails. And then I've got this plugin called Movement by Output, which is awesome. And it just takes something sort of very straightforward. Oh, I already own Movement. You know what? I probably have to, I haven't opened the session in a while. So, so it's still processing the effect. So you can kind of hear it adding that choppiness, that sort of rhythmic tremolo effect. Play it one more time. So, and now I'll play it in the track, which is occurs right here in the middle of verse 2. So,
let you know, for the record, I've read all the texts you've sent, but you're the one who
very subtle.
and there's no going back again. Could have been that classic throwback old school kind of style, like a needle.
You know, super subtle, but it just adds these cool little sort of ear candy moments that I think are really, really cool and fun to play around with in a song when you already have like the core, the base of your rhythm and stuff like that.
Can I say something quickly about this production style? And so you sat there and you played 2 guitar notes, and then you put 4 or 5 different effects and or delays on it, and sat there and dialed that all in for that one moment. And that attention to detail is what makes that lift right there and give you that little bit of movement and stuff that I always talk to my Twitch people about movement and how the songs go and move. And just so I just wanted to point out the subtlety of that, but also the how long that takes to line that all up and make that sound beautiful like that for that 1 second, you know, onward.
Exactly. Yeah. No, you're totally right. It's little details like that, and experimenting. I don't always arrive. I don't just sort of play 2 notes and then know exactly what plugins. I might have tried a couple delay plugins before that and been like, it's not quite right. And then I'm, diving into the delay plugin to make sure that the timing of the repeats moves with the groove of the song and is in tempo with the song. Although sometimes it's nice to make things not in tempo with the song. You talk about tension and release. It's not just about where it builds and drops off or where we hold off on a lyric and then come back in on a word. Sometimes tension and release can be created by like weird things in the background where the timing isn't right in the verse. And I'm talking about like delays and things that don't distract the listener completely, but just create this sort of weirdness. And then when you get to the chorus, if everything's bouncing to the groove, it just makes the chorus feel like it's moving with like total pocket and total groove. And so that can be, there's little ways to pull that off in a production style too. So there's lots of cool like little acoustic things going on in this song. So I start to double that line here. If you can see that, it's a bit dark. At the end of verse 2, then we move into the big chords in the chorus. And then I've got this line going. And here's another acoustic thing that you wouldn't really know there's a delay there, but if I turn everything off. So that's the raw acoustic right there. I'm going to go back to the beginning of chorus 2. So if I hit play again, raw acoustic. I carved a lot of low mids out to make it sort of not so boomy. There's a bit of reverb. And now the dotted eighth.
So this is an example of like a counter melody or a subtle offbeat that takes the pocket away there, and then it comes back stronger for the chorus due to that being off of the whole vibes bounced. Is that correct?
Yeah.
Okay, cool. Sounds cool. It confuses my ears when you pull that out. Like, I just want everyone who's listening to notice that, like, your brain almost turns backwards. Like, I get a little bit of a weird thing in my head, which is what you're trying to do, another subtlety of this production, so that when we do get to the chorus, we clear all that nonsense out almost. You're creating, counters or something, and then getting rid of them to clean it up. I find that fascinating. I just wanted to mention that to the people watching.
Yeah, no problem. Yeah, absolutely. There's different ways to, and sometimes it's kind of fun to take a part that's so simple but make it bigger than it actually was. Those two guitar notes, for example. You're just doing something so basic, but you can kind of enhance it a bit with effects. That said, this is only one. This song is a poppier approach. I don't always do that. Sometimes I like the guitar to just stand on its own, and I keep things very simple and very dry. The other thing too to point out maybe is that these parts are tucked pretty back in the mix, and I'm sure your listeners, if they go and check out the actual release on Spotify or Apple Music or whatever, you'll be able to hear kind of what is at the front of the mix and what is sort of tucked off in the distance. And some of this stuff that I'm showing, it's tucked off in the distance, and it enhances the song. Like, you would be missing it if I muted it, but you also, like, you might not instantly hear it disappear if I muted it. It's more of like, it creates a feeling, but it's not necessarily a part that you can audibly hear up front. Whereas if I muted the vocal, you'd be like, what the heck? Where did the vocal go? Or where did the electric guitars go? But these little effects and stuff are intentionally a little more subtle. One last thing, I'll just show some of the keyboard stuff going on, the synths and all that. I've got some organ going on. So this is the start of chorus 2. So that guy's kind of adding some, those are like 16th notes. 1E and a 2E and a 3E and a 4E and a 1E and a 2E and a 3. Sorry, I know that's annoying.
But also can I say something
in
too, Jordan?
piano lessons.
Yeah.
Sorry, go ahead.
Yeah, I just wanted to say that I wanted to. You keep going on. Don't forget the andas and the things you were talking about a timing there. But I just want to say that the timbres or the timbres of all of these things you're showing us are hitting different parts of this audio scale. So you see that tiny, I don't mean tiny as in small, but like it sounds like tines. That piano is hitting a certain frequency range, I feel like, and you are subtly, I don't know if you're, obviously you know you're doing this, but the guitar is lower, and then there's another guitar it's a little bit more, and there's this space that you're creating. And now, can you talk to me about how that space goes on like front and back? Well, you did, I guess. There are certain things that sit backwards on the Z plane that you're showing us right now, and then there's certain things that are forward on the Z plane. So just tell me how you create a 3D space with music, and can you explain that to me?
Yeah, absolutely. Let me play everything back for a sec. I'm going to play, I'm going to move just to switch it up. I'll move to the final chorus of the song. It's very identical to the second chorus, but maybe just has a couple extra things going on in it. I'm going to play this back so I can listen to it. We'll sort of pick out what is clearly in the background and clearly up front, and I can talk a little bit about how to create that dimension and that depth. So if I play chorus 3 here. Like a needle sliding through the groove on vinyl. Could have been that timeless love song people sing forever, but I was wrong with another sad song for the red. So there's a lot more actually going on there. I've got some background vocals, some ahs that come in, which are up here, and more guitars and stuff too. So one thing actually that is sitting back is that synth that I actually just brought up a minute ago. So if I solo that, and on mute. Could have been that timeless love song people sing forever, but I was wrong. And there's a neat thing happening here. So there's a filter effect on this synth. It starts out bright, and you can hear it get darker after each bar. So I'm going to play it at the beginning again. Really bright, trebly, and it gets darker right there. Back. So it's a filter effect that opens at the start of each bar. And I would have I'm pretty sure I programmed that and did all that and then printed that effect into the audio. And what it does is it sort of, and so this is a big aspect of creating depth is like in terms of physics of sound, if somebody's right up in your ear, you're going to hear lots of bass, you're going to hear lots of treble, you're going to hear the clearest picture possible of them. You know, if I move up on the microphone, for example, right, you can hear a lot more depth to my voice, a lot more top end and low end. If I move away, you're going to lose some bass. You might lose some treble too. It gets kind of more mid-rangey where you can only hear the middle frequencies of my voice. You can't hear the top, you can't hear the bottom. And if you take an EQ, and I'll show you, if I take an EQ, what do I got? So this is not, I have something different going on here EQ wise, but I'll show you. So if I pull an EQ up on that effect, what I'm talking about is when I pull my voice off the microphone, it's the same as doing this, pulling the high, like cutting all the high frequencies out and cutting all the low frequencies out. And then you get this. So it almost sounds further away, but if I turn this off, it sounds much more kind of up front. So that's one way, is with EQ, to tuck something back in the mix a bit. The other thing, the most obvious way to tuck something back and create a bit of like that distance, that far awayness, is just to use the volume. And if something is quieter, if I move further away from my mic, my voice also gets quieter, right? And that's another big aspect to creating depth. I think one more thing to mention on the subject of depth in a production or in a mix is contrast. So things only sound far away if there's something else to sound up close and present. And in the case of this, if I solo that synth sound and I solo Patrick's vocal, you're going to hear that contrast. Patrick's vocal, very upfront. It's very much like this. It's very on the microphone, right in your face, as a good pop vocal should be. And then the synth effect is kind of off in the distance.
That classic throwback, old school kind of style, like a needle sliding through the groove on vinyl. Could have been that timeless love song people sing forever, but I was wrong.
Right? So that's an example, just using different elements in a production to contrast one another. You know, if you want something to sound extra upfront, you know, if I had just an acoustic and a vocal, I might actually, you know, sometimes naturally we want to grab the treble and crank it on an acoustic and make it sound all nice and sparkly. But sometimes if you want it to sound like with only two elements in a mix, which is not an easy song to mix either. These are difficult because they're time consuming, lots of elements to fit in, but mixes where it's just acoustic and guitar can be tricky too. Sometimes, you know, kind of keeping the vocal brighter and darkening the acoustic creates this sort of separation between the two where you can distinctly hear they're living in two different spaces, right? The acoustics further away, kind of tucked back, vocal more up front. And that's really dictated by the song, because there's some songs where you want to hear both up front, present, super clear in your face. Other times, maybe you want the acoustic to sound a little more haunted, you know, kind of off in the distance with some extra reverb and ambience around it. But yeah, so hopefully, Kev, that kind of
that was great, man. Okay, let's bring it. I'm just gonna take it from your full screen. We're just gonna have let's chat again. So I'll bring it back over to the interview portion. So it's just your screen is no longer showing. Just so you know, my question is, you know, a guy like Patrick, how do you and him? I mean, you've worked together for a while, but how do you converse and line up what that artist wants this final product to sound like? How are you? I mean, maybe he's giving you a certain level of control. Maybe it's a bad example, but how does that conversation and that melding of information go to sort of bring his song to life and also meet his or her needs and wants for that song? Go ahead.
Yeah. So I mean, that's something that we talk about, like not in the writing phase. And so it's kind of interesting because when we sat down to write the song, we sort of thought it was more about the subject of the song. We just wanted the lyrics to convey the story, which is basically like, I wrote this song for a girl who broke my heart, and it, you know, turns out this is just another song for the record. Like this is another song to go on my album, another heartbreak song, one
on
of
words.
maybe many.
Yeah.
So it's kind of a neat story, and it's a neat play on the words of for the record. It's not like, for the record, I was right in this relationship, right? It's more like, for the record, this is another song that I have written over heartbreak, and it's actually on the physical for the record. Cool, fun little fact is that Patrick actually took these songs. I ended up remastering this song and 3 others that I did with him, and he put them on an actual record, on a vinyl print. So, and made that like a little special edition thing for any of his fans and people who are interested. So that was cool. And I have a copy, and it's kind of fun to own something that you've worked on inside the computer on physical vinyl, because it's neat. Doesn't happen too often. But anyways, we wrote that song really just focusing on the story, and making sure the lyrics sounded good and that it fit good. When it came time to produce it, he kind of just trusted me to get it going. And what I like to do is at least bring something to the table for him to listen to. And so I need to spend some time with it, take it a certain distance without going too far, because I don't want to be so invested in my time in building the song
and go backwards
that I've put all this time in. I think it's great. And he's like, I hate this.
Yeah.
This isn't what I wanted at all.
Right.
Right. So I was careful not to do that, but I kind of came at him with that acoustic thing and the synth thing. And I was like, listen to this. What do you think? And I don't think there was bass or electric guitars or anything. And that stuff kind of all fell in naturally, but he liked it and it was good. But there are other artists that I work with where, Patrick and I have worked together for quite a while on a lot of different stuff. So he kind of knows my style, and we have sort of, we just get each other.
Of course.
Rapport, that's the word. And there's some other artists where, especially if it's a new relationship, I want to make sure they feel involved, that they feel that it is collaborative. I don't, there are times where the artist will just say up front, hey, I've listened to your stuff. I love what you do to songs, and just take mine somewhere.
They did their homework, right? They did what they were supposed to do.
That is what they're supposed to do. Good Lord. I would be frightened to work with an artist if they've never listened to what I've done.
Right.
And honestly, I can say more times than I care to count, I know that there are a lot of artists out there working with producers, and they're not really listening to what the producer's doing. And I think that is so crucial before handing somebody your hard-earned money to make a song, that you really vet them and compare what they do against other producers. Don't get in a lineup just because 10 of your friends or a bunch of other artists are going to that producer. Granted, if there is a lineup, it could very well be for a good reason, but sometimes in commercial genres, people flock where, they feel there's a status associated with going to a certain producer.
Can I step in on that? As like, I would, as soon as I know everyone is going there, I'm like, well, not me then, because for the very reason is we all know, like, you can't be that far different. Like, if you're working with the same guy, he has to be Rick Rubin and sit in the corner. We talked about this on Monday, with his feet crossed and go, and that's how he is able to do, Death Row Records and Red Hot Chili Peppers and Adele. I don't know what that, he's a bit of a different, dichotomy, but like, if you're going to a producer that everyone else is going to, you could sure as heck expect your stuff to sound like everybody else's ultimately.
Quite potentially. Yeah. That does happen all the time. I think the hallmark of a good producer, or something that I strive for, is to be a bit of a chameleon, so that when people listen to 2 things I've done, they have no clue that it's the same person.
Right.
I find that a nice challenge to myself. I feel like that probably means I'm serving the artist better too, because
absolutely,
I'm not trying to imprint myself upon their music. My goal, hopefully, is to always, we start with getting the song as great as we can, whether it's lyrically, structure, melody, whatever. And then after that, it's like, I want to get out of the way of this now, and really, if we did our job in the writing phase, the rest should sort of pull itself together, and it the song should sort of speak to you in terms of what it needs to take it where it's supposed to go. So I'm really big on that. And yeah, I just think not enough artists out there listen and really check out the resume of the producers they're working with. And that's,
or a guy like me
I've
where
constantly come across people who are very disappointed in the end from that, and that's not cool.
well, and it's like a guy like me where I'm like willing to say like, hey, this isn't how it goes. And some people might get upset about that, right? They might be like, well, you take it personally. So as a producer, there's this another chameleon act of like, your ego doesn't have to be there all the time. We can drop the
No.
yeah, and like I'm sure everyone can sense that from you, that you have that under wraps. I mean, you speak humbly, your energy is humble, and I think that's very important for that artist to produce a relationship. Because if the producer thinks they're the chef, we got problems. Now we got two cooks in one kitchen. And that's where things can go right. So I always ask that to artists that I speak to, like, how do you convey to your producer, hey, this is what it should say, the Lumineers. Is it you just say the Lumineers and then walk away? Or do you sit down with him and dissect 4 songs and talk about all the instruments in said songs? And all, like, how far does that go for you?
Yeah, I it depends on the artist. It depends on the production. But I love to spend that time up front. I usually have artists sending me tons of links to stuff that inspires them. And I even take that with a grain of salt. Just because you're inspired by it doesn't necessarily mean that's what you want to sound like. And so I'm really spending a lot of time early in the conversation with artists, vetting them as much as they're vetting me.
Right.
What inspires you? What motivates you? What do you like about this? And if they're like, I just love this song, I'll be like, cool. Tell me one thing you hate about it.
Oh.
Even though it's a song you love.
Yeah.
And they're like, what? And I'm like, thing that you don't like, and tell me what it is. And sometimes they're like, there's nothing I hate. Cool. That's, at least you went there mentally and like criticize something you love. Cause I think that is so important in music as well, is not being afraid to criticize what you love. And I know from songwriting with artists, sometimes people get so protective, there's the term song babies or whatever, right? Like people come out of a songwrite and they're like, oh my gosh, I love this. This is amazing. And it's like, it's great to be excited. You should be excited and fired up about it, but like give it 2 days and come back to it. And then after that, give it 2 weeks and listen to it again. Are you still as excited about it? Or do you still love it? Is there things that you could refine a little bit and change? Maybe there's a lyric or two where you, now listening back, it's like, oh, we say we in the chorus, but we also are saying I in the chorus. So is this song from the we perspective or is it from the me perspective? And there's little things like that sometimes slip through the songwriting process that you need to check up on and double check, right? But I just think that it's important to be confident and proud of yourself and what you do, but also Jordan. Never be afraid to just shred it to bits.
I have to take this. We're going to pause this podcast right now. Hello? Hey guys, sorry about that. I have to get a couple of packages today, so I'm going to meld that together in post. But Jordan was telling us about the relationship between a producer and an artist and how they meld that together. So I didn't mean to cut you off, dude. I'm so sorry. Onward.
No, dude. I have packages showing up to my house all the time, and you got to be there. It's a nightmare. So I was just sort of saying, going into working with artists, really trying to understand where they're coming from going into a song, to make sure that whatever it is that they are chasing, that we hopefully arrive there. And sometimes a good way of doing that is reverse engineering their goals. So I often will ask an artist right off the hop, what are your goals as an artist? And I want to know kind of, what are your career goals as an artist? Separate from that, I want to know with this song that we're about to sort of embark on that journey of, what are your goals for this song? Often they feed into each other, but if they're like, my goal is I want to get on radio, I'm a country artist, I want to be played on the highway. Rock star. And in some cases, the rock star stuff is secondary, and it's more like, I want a career in music. It's like, well, to have a career in music, you got to get famous mostly.
Yeah.
I shouldn't say that. I'm thinking, when I say that, I'm thinking specifically in like the commercial country genre.
Yeah.
You if you want to be around and do this for years and years, yeah, you kind of need to build a name for yourself. So that's what I mean by, you got to be famous. Granted, I think, a deep philosophy of mine is, it's about doing it for the love of it. I'm sure that's sort of come across. Hopefully it has.
Yep.
I don't think fame is a good motivator, nor is money. But if you're smart, you can achieve the financial aspect of being able to sustain yourself and wake up every day and do this. And, there's no shame in still having that be important to you when you make music. And I find some people, if they're not like, I want to be famous, make me a rock star, other people on the other end of the spectrum are like, well, you shouldn't be doing this for money, you shouldn't be doing this for fame, blah, blah, blah. It's like, that is true. But if you reconcile that a little bit, if you really want to wake up and do this every day, you need to pay attention to what the industry is and how it works and play that game a little bit.
Right.
You got to play by the rules before you can start to break them.
Do you have an example of a session that is a little bit less pop, like a little bit more stripped down? Would you open one of those for us?
Yeah, I can definitely do that. I was actually going to open one that is a bit bigger, but I'd rather follow your cue. And
I was just curious because we were just talking about it and the difference between like what I would like and what Patrick might like. Like what you showed me from Patrick is tremendous and it's radio friendly and stuff, but that is not, if I came to you to record, that's not what I would ask you to do for me, right?
Exactly.
And so I'm wondering if you could show us something that might be a little bit more on a totally different level than what you already have showed us, to show your chameleonism. Is that a word?
Yeah. Let me see here.
And no pressure, dude. If it's not, it doesn't have to be. You can show me whatever you want. I was just curious to see how you might have a session that is a little bit more, I would just say the word rootsy, maybe, or something.
Yeah.
And if not, that's cool too. Just curious.
Yeah, I do have one.
Okay.
Yeah. Let's try this one. Are you screen sharing yet?
Oh, I will do that right now. There's going to be a little stinger. Ding, ding. There we go.
Yeah, no problem.
Rock and roll. I'm going to actually mute myself and let you go for this as well. Show us all about this little stripped down session. It's not stripped down, I can already tell. It's still 87 tracks.
Hold on, it's 52 tracks.
Okay, well done, sir. It's a third of what it normally is. I'm going to mute myself and you just explain what the difference maybe between this session and the last session and what you're trying to achieve differently.
Sure, yeah. So this is a song I did with a friend a little while ago. It's definitely more rootsy. Her sound overall is just a little more, like content of lyrics and everything is far more focused on some really raw emotion and some real storytelling. And so, if you try and wrap that up with like a billion little doo-bops and synthy things and things like that, it's not good. This should play back. Yeah, this is an older session. There's a lot of plugins I don't have installed anymore. So it's actually going to play back even less processed. It's going to sound, and when I say processed, I mean, really it's just EQ and some of those important things, but it should still sound pretty close to what it was. So let me hit play here and see what's going on. So it's got a bit of that train groove kind of drum thing. Yeah, there's some...
Don't worry if there's compressors and stuff gone. It's messing up with your mix, and I suspect and things.
Yeah. There's so many effects missing.
Right.
One other one here I'm going to show you. This is even more stripped down. So this is a really heartfelt song that has actually a really free-form time structure until it gets to the choruses. Then it sort of picks up into a little bit of a groove, but it's sort of this contemplative strumming an acoustic chord with my thumb as I'm literally, the artist is sort of singing out her thoughts. It's kind of neat and very different. And look, we're going down 48 tracks.
Well done. Well done.
You know what? Actually, and some of those track counts are, so right here, it starts at 13, so it's even less. The reason it's starting at 13 is I have a bunch of tracks that I've hidden. And what I do, and this is a little tidbit that people might find helpful, is when I'm building a song, a production, once I've got a bunch of takes down from an acoustic guitar or whatever, I will comp that together to get sort of the best sounding acoustic guitar performance. And, here you see it here, acoustic rhythm comp. That's sort of, and it's showing back in Spectral Edit. So I'll take that off. So this is the acoustic guitar comp here. I'll play it soloed by itself here. Uh-oh. It shouldn't be all distorted like that.
It's okay. Like we were talking before, that some people, there's different, hertz that we might need to line up or whatever that might be causing this stuff. But also the same thing, Jordan, is that, like I said, over this video chat, we're never going to get it as beautiful as you make it sound, and all the efforts you put in. Everyone really has to go and listen to the tracks to actually hear that. So I'm just making sure everybody knows the links are below in the YouTube description for Jordan, all of Jordan's playlists that are songs that he's produced. So,
yeah. Thanks, man. Yeah, no, and I've turned off a couple of heavy duty plugins, so it might just be that we're streaming at the same time, and all that's taxing the computer a bit. But so it's playing back better now, and this song. What I was saying before is I'll comp together like a good acoustic guitar performance or whatever, and then I'll keep in my session. I will just mute, lock, and then hide the tracks that have all the takes on them. From the acoustic guitar, electric guitar, bass, vocals, whatever. And I hide those so they're out of my way come, mix time, and also maybe when the production's more locked in to everything's sort of final. But the nice thing about keeping those tracks in your session is I can unhide them later, because invariably sometimes you get so lost in certain details of the song, and then I'll be driving, listening to my car, and I'm like, whoa, like I totally didn't catch that, but there's like a weird pop in the vocal, or like, either an artifact, a pop or a click. Or sometimes I'll just be like, I don't really like the way that artist is saying the word for. So I'll go back and go through all the other takes of that moment in the song. And sometimes I'll just slide one of those other takes in and just correct that one little vocal thing that I'm not thrilled with. So anyways, this is super stripped down. It's a cool song called Bad Timing, and I'll play it for you here.
I was actually falling hard, took me by surprise, and I didn't think twice when you said we should talk. You said it was complicated, told me how much you hate this, that you can't explain it, why you had to break my heart. Maybe I just wasn't your type, maybe it's still her on your mind, maybe you learned something about me that you didn't like and never told me why. All of a sudden you weren't ready, you went and made good so messy. Maybe you just used to giving up before even trying, or maybe it was all bad timing.
So it's kind of a neat song in that those chorus sections here that I'm highlighting, those are
just wasn't your type.
Well, those are where the groove is more solid, and then in the verses it kind of goes back to this sort of contemplative not spoken, but just sort of very loose timing. You'll hear it here coming into the second verse here.
Always busy on Fridays, never a big fan of texting. Every day you said you had to focus on yourself and that you'd just be in my way.
Jordan, did you turn off the click for that part to record that part?
Yeah.
Maybe I just wasn't your type. Maybe it's still
Which was hard to do because to get back to the tempo that we set for the choruses, it was hard to figure out the timing
To
of those
nail that.
transitions.
Yeah, because your bread still has to be lined up. You know,
Yeah,
the sandwich contents.
Section is,
Yeah, the sandwich contents can be all messy in the middle. Sorry, I didn't mean to cut you off. Your meat, your cheese, and your salami can all be messy in the middle. But if you don't have a nice tight piece of bread on each end, it's not going to line back up with the grid, and you're in a hoot, right? So,
yeah, and that's, it doesn't have to be on the grid, but in this case, I ended up using like a shaker that's a VST plugin. So it's the shaker itself. You can't really manually shake it. It will just shake to the timing of the song. Oh wait, I'm sorry. No, I didn't. I did manually. I have a look at. So here's the MIDI notes of the shaker. So this is a MIDI shaker.
maybe I just
So yeah, I did. What am I using for that? Oh yeah, so it's Native Instruments battery. So I've just got these shaker samples and I'm manually shaking it to follow the sort of strange timing.
maybe you just used to giving up.
I wouldn't normally do that. I'd normally just record a shaker, but I was working out of a studio in Toronto and just didn't have access to it. And I wanted the shaker down that day as we were recording.
yeah, this is super fascinating, dude. I just wanted to show the difference between what all those little subtle things you were doing before with Patrick's song versus this song, where it's like the subtleties are the fact that, like, there's a little bit of sloppiness going on in the verse, and then it tightens back up, and that is also tension and release. The fact that we're just kind of floating around in the water, and then we're back onto a wave again. And
Absolutely.
so I just wanted to show the difference of your abilities and stuff, and also get a little taste for myself. You're literally doing a little resume for me. It's like,
I'll just hit play on this last chorus. You'll hear it. So this is where the song grows, and you can see now this orange track is a sub bass that comes in. In the fully mixed version, it's a pretty heavy duty bass. It's kind of cool because the song's so intimate and quiet in your car, and then this bass just grows and it envelops the song. And then of course the purple is all some different synth stuff. So the transition here is like this.
Could be something we're not.
This is a volume
Maybe
automation.
I just wasn't your type. I bet it still hurt on your mind. Maybe you learned something about me that you didn't like, and I don't want to know why. All of a sudden you weren't ready. You went and made good so messy. Maybe you just used to giving up before even trying. Maybe it was all bad timing.
Was the fact that the song is called Bad Timing?
Sorry, what was that?
I'm sorry, I didn't mean to cut it off, but I just realized that the song's called Bad Timing, and you have bad timing in the verse.
Yeah, and that was actually a little bit intentional because I thought, the way it was in the work tape, I was like, well, it's kind of cool to sing the lyric, maybe it was all bad timing, and have that line just be kind of strange timing. It is bad timing in music, but not like we made it artsy, but and this song is a more artsy song. Like, you wouldn't necessarily go to radio with this song because it's more sentimental, and you can do sentimental on radio, but it's a bit tricky.
Right on, dude.
Kind of something.
So can I bring it back to the interview and just ask you a few more questions, or is there anything else you'd like to highlight here in this session at all?
No, that was kind of it. Just it's more stripped back. That was, I think, if you get rid of the tracks I had hidden, like I think it was in the ballpark of 40 tracks or whatever.
Right.
Again, they're not all playing. Like, through most of that song, it's just the acoustic and vocal, and then towards the end, there's some synths and stuff. And sometimes all those track numbers come from the fact that I'm sometimes layering 3 synthesizer sounds together, but I'm packaging it as one,
Right.
even though it takes up track numbers
I
and
understand.
stuff.
It's a left and a right and
Audibly,
a center. It's kind of
sound-
giving you a circular thing on that one line, not even the instrument.
Yeah.
That literal line is giving you I did that all with some vocals, and it's very tedious, man. It's very interesting that you do that. Can I ask you a couple weird questions here? What do you think it would take to make another rock star? Like, I'm talking about Led Zeppelin or Jimi Hendrix level, timeless rock star. What is that going to take in 2022? Will it ever happen again?
Man. Yeah, it's funny. I heard a conversation recently. I was sort of taking part in, but also mostly just listening, between some people in the industry who I admire. And their perspective, which I thought was interesting, was that, we'll never see, like, the days of rock stars are gone.
Mm-hmm.
And they were saying, now in the day and age of social media, and everybody who's famous is pretty much showing their kitchen, in the background of their Instagram post or whatever. And they're like, these are my kids. This is what I do. The mystique,
The lore,
that helps
yes.
elevate the profile
Yeah.
of a rock star is in some ways gone. It's an interesting perspective on it. There's some truth to that. I think, like, the rock stars, like, trashing hotels, stumbling down the hallway, like the Motley Crue kind of stories. I think those are kind of going to be gone, but there are still people of a massive status who have done amazing things musically, who, when they walk into a room, everyone's like, holy crap, that person's right there.
Yeah.
And I think people's success and being at the top echelon of what they do will always preserve some of that. But I think it was a lot easier to have that mystique at a low level or a mid-level tier of artist.
Yeah.
Whereas now I think everybody mid-level and down is like, here's me in my SUV taking my kid to Walmart, and everybody above that, you still don't really see exactly what they're doing in their day to day. And,
so maybe
to put it in
maybe the answer is that the next rock star will be someone who is so authentic and so relatable and real to you that you're like, wow, this guy's just like me, but he's also singing on the radio. And that might be the attraction that comes, because there is something to being authentic, I think, that people are attracted to. And there's something to believing what you say and having a real passion about it. So when I talk to somebody about Live from the Bunker here, they leave this room as if I just told them. I do tell them. I say, this is going to be the Tiny Desks of Toronto. This is going to be the KXP video session of Toronto. I will make it that. And they leave here with that belief, because I believe it so much, and I have so much passion in it that there's no way that they can't believe it, And I feel like that might be what the rock star is of the future, is someone people can look up to who is strong and kind and relatable. And so that's where I hope it might go. And it's tough, because I feel like a lot of rock stars right now, the guys with the chains and the cars, that would be what I would consider a rock star right now, right? Like, they're living it up in the Lambos and they're doing rap albums, and and that doesn't seem to be authentic to me, and I don't think that's going to last. It's this little drop in the pan. And so I really, really strongly believe that a guy like Chris Stapleton, for example, in 50 years from now, we're going to actually look back and go, that guy was legendary, like a Jimi Hendrix, because the authenticity is undeniable. He's just a quiet dude with 5 kids. He loves his wife so much. They glare into each other's eyes when they sing. All of that naturalness is what makes him a rock star, dude. And I really think that would be sort of my... you could chase after the TikTok pop song as long as you want, but you're always going to be gone. You're always going to be a flash in the pan, unless you are so authentic. Maybe a Billie Eilish, maybe this Olivia Rodrigo, maybe they will last. But yeah,
I think some of those artists will, certainly, like in pop. I think authenticity is winning for people in terms of elevating their career. I think, if Olivia Rodrigo were like a Britney Spears, where it was kind of really somebody being put together by a label or a business, like, that doesn't fly today. But here's Olivia Rodrigo. She's writing her own songs about her own experience,
right?
And they have to be produced well, so it all kind of comes together there. And I think in some ways, some of these pop artists are sort of the modern day rock stars.
Right.
Justin Bieber.
Of course, yeah. They
You know,
scream like the Beatles.
He really is a rock star. And I was thinking too, as you're talking about Stapleton, I was thinking, Keith Urban is a rock star. I feel, he's flying all around North America, playing huge crowds. He is the real deal. He's a phenomenal guitar player, great entertainer. He has those other qualities that a lot of people are aware of, just in terms of he seems to be quite humble anyways, from what I see.
Yeah.
But yeah, we still have rock stars today for sure.
Right.
But yeah, it's like, and what's ironic about all of it is authenticity absolutely is, as you said, is a key component. And there's all these people chasing that status at all degrees. If there's a spectrum of authenticity from totally phony and fake to 100% real deal, the one quality that seems to be present amongst like 99% of the people at the top is authenticity. So like it would be really smart for anybody chasing that to look at themselves and be like, am I being authentic to myself? Am I being true to myself? Or am I just trying to be like that person at the top, and I'll wear their clothes, I'll buy their, I'll have a guitar like them, or do whatever they're doing, and that'll build my brand, and it's like, just, you shouldn't do that. Just be you.
People will, and you, that's the other thing is like, you don't have to fight to get fans then. People are going to be attracted to you because you are you. And that's the people that you want attracted to you. It's getting in front of more eyes. I totally understand how the game works, but ultimately I think that what we need to understand is that if you want to be LMFAO, you can be that, but no one gives a flying fuck about them now. They had a 2-second flash in the pan, party rockin', whatever that was, and it's fun. But we can't have all top 40 songs being all of that flash in the pan bullshit. I want to be able to remember the number one song from 2010. I don't want it to be lost in a sea of nonsense, because people know the number ones from 1971. It's this, it's Zeppelin, it's Rod Stewart, it's, whatever those names are. I can't even, and I don't want to name LMFAO as a number one in 2010. I don't want to tell my grandkids that this was the number one song and it's party rocking, like take my pants off, do whatever. That, like, I understand there's a place for that. But that authenticity, now if I tell Stapleton about my grandkids, they're going to look, feel more, it's more real. It's just not that flash in the pan is what I'm trying to say. So I think that's where I sit, and that's where, like, I've been introspective about my Twitch channel recently, and I'm realizing that the people who are here today are here because I will say the F word, and I will say like it is, and I will say what I believe and what I feel from my heart, and that's why people are here. And I think that relates over to music and over to any performance or any art. If you're being real, it's awesome. If you're not, we can sniff a fake out real quickly.
That's very true. I agree, and I think when approaching production with artists, it's important for me to live by those words too, and challenge and look for opportunities to challenge artists on being authentic, rather than saying, hey, send me, what you want this song to sound like, and I'll go dial in that synth patch, and I'll go dial in that guitar tone.
Who are you, artist? Who are you is the question. Let's just lean into that. Robin Adelina is crushing it. Her songs are literally just her going, this is how I feel today. It is literally she's
doing the Olivia Rodrigo thing,
and it's
basically
killing it, man. I really enjoy what she's doing right now. I'm very proud to say that she comes from this area, and I've been in circles with her, and it's just wonderful to see. But she's a pop star, but that is the most authentic pop star I've ever seen. Do you hear what I'm saying now? She's doing, there's snaps and clicks in the song, there's claps. It's very poppy, the music. But she's as real as it gets. What you see is what you get. That's how she is. So that's why she's doing well. Yeah. And it's just a matter of fact, man. And I get passionate about this. So you can hear me getting all freaking right into it. But
I love it, man. And there's an unapologeticism to it that I think is super important. Of course, to like be true to yourself, and don't make excuses for it. And just I think if people don't like it, then screw them.
That's not your crowd. There are 7.5 billion people in this world. You don't have to
Yeah.
go for the same crowd that Morgan Wallen is. That's not like, and you know
No.
what? You can have a fraction of that. And if you own everything, you're going to be well off. If you have,
Yeah, absolutely. I was just going to say, when it comes to even the monetary side of music, speaking to the size of the global population, you don't need to be playing arenas to have a wonderful career and pay your mortgage on time at all.
Yeah.
You know, there is so much opportunity out there, and so you don't have to make stuff just carved specifically for radio. That's why when I'm working with artists at the beginning, you know, what is your goals with your music? If they're like, I want to be successful, I want to have a career, and they say, and I don't give a shit about radio, I'm like, cool. Then that gives me 3 really important parameters to take note of. So we don't need to play by the radio rules with our song production. It doesn't have to be 2 minutes and 45 seconds. Great, because sometimes that snuffs out good music and it stifles a well-written song. You know, but we want it to grab people and grab their attention. So there's ways to do that in production and music, and maybe even we do a lyric tweak if it makes sense to do that. But either way, you know, those goals, you know, determining that early on is so important. You know?
You can't start the race running in the wrong direction is what I'm trying to say. And I've had such situations where I have laid out very plain, like I've given the 2 polars, like here's one side of the spectrum that we were talking about of authenticity. Here's the other side of authenticity. I'm happy to find somewhere in the middle, and they couldn't understand what I was explaining to them. So it's very like just having a people person, being socially understanding and listening to people. Like I can tell that you listen to me. You're looking at my face on the camera every time I'm explaining, and you're listening to what I'm saying. And when I'm finished, you're taking things from that where it's not just this blank response. And it's fascinating to see the way that the different producers go about what they do is what I'm saying.
Yeah, no, that's cool. And there should be diversity, you know, and again, that's what I love about music is you can be, you have the opportunity, especially in production, you know, you have the opportunity to be different each time you make a new song. And even for one artist within an album, it's like, let's make 2 that will go to radio and do fit that mold. But then let's make the other 7 or 8 on this 10-song album. They're going to be not for that. Yeah. And a lot of artists have done that over history, right? Like they kind of have the single and then they have the other stuff. So it's, finding
the balance. Find the balance. And one of my questions is often, and I'm not going to ask any more of my written down questions, but it's often, how do you find a balance between being an artist and being a business? And that's such a difficult thing, and we're already going over this. It's like, do you want to be on the radio and get checks in the mail? Are you going to go out and slug it out in the pubs and clubs? Are you going to there's many ways to do this. You don't have to skin the cat any which way. And so and again, authenticity is so important.
And you can play weddings only for the rest of your life and make a great living at music.
Heck yeah.
And that's so different from being an artist building a brand who's writing songs and trying to,
or you could do both, like me.
Connect with people.
I'm trying to do both.
Or do both. And so many people do, and there's nothing wrong with it. If you can wake up every day and put food on the table and support both interests, eventually one may take over for the other. And that's being a working class musician, which I'd say 99.99% are that. Yeah. And that kind of work ethic is so crucial even to surviving the glitz and the glam and the fame. You need to, you have to grind it out, and you have to be the type who grinds it out. You can't be sitting around waiting for, fame to come find you and hoping that just because you put this song out that you pay a radio tracker to put it on radio and push it out to radio stations. You can't expect that just to turn you into a star. You have to build a identity, a brand. You have to show over time to these people in the industry that you're serious and you're driven, and they will start to take little samples of the cake that you're baking.
I've had a big Canadian booker come to a showcase I did and went up to shake his hand and said, "Hey, my name's Kevin." He goes, "I know exactly who you are. You're the troubadour." And I was like, holy shit. Like, I'm not in the game. I'm not part of the CMAO. I'm not part of the CCMAs or any of that stuff. But this guy knows exactly who I am because there's no day that I'm not playing. There's no day that someone's not saying I'm going to see Kev or look at this guy here. And he knows that now. The buzz is already created. You know, that guy knows who I am. And if I one day go out and go, hey, I've signed up for this and I've got this whole thing going, would you put me on a tour? There's no doubt in my mind he knows who I am. That he knows I'm showing up to a 6:00 show in Dauphin, Manitoba. If you need me to, I will be there. In tune and on time. And that is invaluable. And so building that that rapport, not even just, what I think I'm trying to do is build this lore or this story that this guy plays more than anybody. He literally works his fingers to the bone, his voice to the bone. He never stops because he refuses to have another job. This dude needs a chance. He will never give up on us. Like, we're going to get our money back out of him, whatever the situation is, right? And that's what I'm trying to sort of create for myself. And I think you've done that with yourself. Like you said earlier, we have to come to completion with these projects. We have to make them come to fruition, even if we're not satisfied with them. And that's a learning curve in itself. So I think you've provided us with unbelievable amounts of insight and knowledge. And I think we could probably do this for another 4 hours, but the files get too big for my stupid little computers. So we have to cut it up and do maybe another chat another time, my man. But I really appreciate everything you've said today and the way that you approach music and the way that you are open to that whole spectrum of authenticity or complete character, because there is a spectrum and everyone's allowed, just like in politics, just like in gender, just like in everything else that we're trying to find out now, right?
Yeah. And I'm it's awesome to talk about this stuff. You're absolutely right. I feel like we could go on for hours, and especially the industry. It's a whole separate discussion in terms of business and music business, but I appreciate you having me on, man. It's awesome to do this, and I'm 100% down anytime, it's fun to kind of showcase a little bit of what I do and learn from you too and find out what your thoughts are on it.
I'm going to learn a little bit better on how to get your audio a little cleaner to my end, because we did have a little bit of that call waiting music sort of thing going on. And I really have to think, and it's not your fault, Jordan. And that's why I kept mentioning to everybody, like, if you want to hear the subtleties and the beautiful reverbs, I really need you guys to go check out the link below for Jordan's link bio, please, and go listen to what he's produced, because we were not getting a good picture of what you were providing us. And that's nothing to do with you or myself. It's just, I think the video chat over Zoom gets a little weird and warbly and stuff. We're not using Zoom particularly, but
they have algorithms, I think, too, with Twitch, and YouTube even has things where it just sort of condenses. When I'm sending high resolution audio, it starts to condense it, right?
Exactly.
To keep the file size down. But,
I just want to make sure everybody knows that is not the exact sound you're hearing. Go check out all the links below.
Yeah, all that distortion was not intentional.
Any warbling that's going on, if he strummed the guitar and it went, that's not anything. That's just technology and the internet. Anyways, dude, you are an absolute legend. I'm very grateful to have you on here, and thanks for doing this. And anybody who has questions for you, they can throw them in the comments of the YouTube video. Everyone was just in awe today. We didn't get much questions. Everyone's just enjoying the podcast as far as I can see here in chat. It's fascinating to see how the hot dog is made. And dude, let's do this again sometime. And I will be in touch with you, because I think that at some point there's a place for us to probably try to maybe make something happen together. And I would really love to make that happen with you.
Absolutely, dude. Yeah, I'm more than open to that. And the other thing I'll say too is that once it's on YouTube, if people have questions, I'll check back and kind of like read through the comments. If people put their questions there, I'll reply there. If they have any questions about, what plugin I'm using or whatever I was doing and showing in the video, I'm more than happy to kind of respond there. So
thank you, dude. I appreciate that very much. All right, dude. Well, I'll let you have your afternoon. And,
all right, sounds good, man.
Yeah, if you got to cut the lawn or whatever, no problem. Do your thing, and thank you for doing this. And I'll be in touch with you soon. Okay, Jordan.
All right, sounds good, man.
All right, take care, dude.
Take care. Bye.
Oh, Yahoo Mountain Dew, guys. How was that? How was that one? That one was a bit different, and I'm super stoked about it. What an interesting fellow. Great insights, well-spoken, humble, honest, authentic, and willing to do what his clients need. So make sure you check out all the links below. Everybody who's in the chat right now, Those are the links for Jordan, his Instagram, his website, and everything. He just moved to Nashville. I suspect his studio is going to be top notch because I know the one that he had here in Ontario was unbelievable. So make sure you follow along with him. And yeah, I guess this is it for this week. All my links are below. If you want to subscribe or on YouTube, that'd be super awesome. Watch this. I have a little button. Boom. Brings up this thing up at the top corner over here. Like, subscribe, comment, all those things that everyone says. All my socials are below me here. If you want to watch this live on Twitch, please come do that. I'm going to hand this over to one of our moderators, Island Adjacent, who is more than welcome to pick a raid for us today. And until next week, when we do this again, I ask you all, please keep it between the mustard and the mayonnaise.